Am I the asshole for telling my fiancé I don't want an Indian wedding? For clarification, I am half Indian and half white, while my fiancé is fully white. I personally have never been all that in touch with my Indian heritage and don't really care to be. I love my Indian side of the family with all my heart and have partaken in a few traditional Indian weddings and worn traditional Indian clothes many times, but that's about it. I was born and grew up here in America, so I know I'm pretty whitewashed. When I first met my fiancé back in college, he had never even heard of or eaten butter chicken in his life. He knew nothing about Indian culture. But after a while of dating and meeting my grandparents, who were very immersed in the culture, my fiancé became infatuated with it. He soon took to the internet and even had in-depth conversations with my grandparents about Indian culture and their life in India. I thought it was pretty sweet and even cute that they were bonding like this. My grandparents seemed to genuinely adore him because of it. Over the years, his obsession grew, and he started buying an assortment of things like kurtas and other clothing, Ganesha statues, and books relating to life in India. Again, it didn't bother me at all, even though many of my friends have told me that he's romanticizing my culture. I disagreed with them. I thought it was endearing how interested he was in my heritage, even if it wasn't something I was particularly connected to myself. However, now that we're recently engaged, he has his heart set on having a traditional Indian wedding. I hate the idea, as I've always dreamed of having a very American wedding. I've told him that since the beginning of our relationship, and he has never objected to it. When I told him I didn't want an Indian wedding, he got pretty upset and demanded to know why. I simply reiterated my reasons. I'm not that connected to the culture, and I've always envisioned an American wedding. But that answer wasn't good enough for him, and he again asked why. I thought it was weird that he was getting so emotional over this, and even thought I was lying. I repeated my reasons, and he got so mad that he stormed off. I'm open to more discussion about it, but I can't help but feel like he's upset about something else that I can't quite put my finger on. The next day, I decided to talk to him again, hoping he had calmed down. We sat down, and I tried to understand his perspective. He told me that he had grown to love my culture so much that he wanted it to be a part of our wedding, not just as a tribute to my heritage, but as a way to honor my grandparents and the family traditions they cherish. He expressed how much it meant to him, having learned and embraced so much about Indian culture. I started to see things from his point of view. He wasn't just romanticizing my culture, he genuinely loved it and wanted to incorporate it into our special day. I realized that maybe I was too quick to dismiss his feelings and desires, but at the same time, I felt a bit overwhelmed by his insistence and the emotional reaction he had. It was clear that this was more than just a preference for him. It was a deep-seated desire to celebrate our union in a way that acknowledged both of our backgrounds. As we talked, he shared some beautiful ideas he had for the wedding. He envisioned a vibrant, colourful celebration with traditional Indian music, dances, and rituals. He even suggested incorporating a henna ceremony and a barat, where he would arrive on a white horse, accompanied by a lively procession of friends and family. The more he described it, the more I could see the sparkle in his eyes and the genuine excitement he felt. I suggested a compromise, proposing that we could incorporate some elements of an Indian wedding into our American ceremony. Perhaps we could have a traditional Indian attire segment or a few cultural rituals, but still keep the overall feel of an American wedding that I had always dreamed of. He seemed to consider this, but I could tell he was still somewhat disappointed. Feeling torn, I decided to reach out to my grandparents for their advice. They had always been my rock, and I knew they would have some wisdom to share. I explained the situation to them, and they listened patiently. My grandmother smiled and said, "Why not have the best of both worlds? A fusion wedding that celebrates both cultures could be beautiful and unique." Inspired by her words, I began to envision a wedding that blended both Indian and American traditions. We could start with a traditional Indian ceremony, complete with vibrant decorations, henna, and a barat. Afterward, we could transition into an American-style reception with a white wedding dress, a classic cake, and all the usual elements I had always dreamed of. When I presented this idea to my fiancé, his face lit up with joy. He loved the idea of a fusion wedding and was thrilled that we could honor both of our heritages. We spent the next few weeks planning and brainstorming, finding ways to seamlessly blend the two cultures into a cohesive celebration. As the wedding day approached, I felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. I hoped everything would come together smoothly and that our guests would appreciate the unique blend of traditions. On the big day, as I walked down the aisle in a stunning white gown, I felt a sense of peace and happiness. Seeing my fiancé in his traditional Indian attire, beaming with pride, made my heart swell with love. The ceremony was beautiful, with my grandparents performing traditional rituals and my fiancé's family participating with enthusiasm. The reception was equally magical, with a mix of Indian and American music, dances, and food. Our guests, from both cultures, seemed to enjoy and embrace the fusion celebration. Reflecting on the journey, I realized that the wedding was not just a union of two individuals, but a coming together of two rich and diverse cultures. It was a celebration of love, respect, and understanding. I felt grateful for my fiancé's passion for my heritage and for the opportunity to create something unique and meaningful together. So, am I the asshole for initially telling my fiancé I didn't want an Indian wedding? Maybe I was, but the experience taught me the importance of compromise, communication, and embracing each other's backgrounds. Our fusion wedding turned out to be more beautiful and memorable than I could have ever imagined, and it was a perfect reflection of our love and partnership.